on Brookland News Live, the swearing in of the sister of Lindsey Graham happening right now. We will take you there coming up in just a few moments. And in a rare moment on Capitol Hill, Supreme Court justices testifying on security funding for themselves and the Supreme Court building. We're live there. Plus, the new updates the president just gave on the war in Iran. We're going to play that coming up in just a moment. Brookland News Live starts right now.
Brookland News Live starts right now with breaking news.
Welcome in. We begin with several breaking stories. You are taking a look right now at two stories happening right now on Capitol Hill. They are both breaking. You see the emotion there on the faces of Graham's family. This comes after Lindsey Graham's unexpected death just over the weekend. The swearing in moments ago. This was the ceremonial swearing in. We are also tracking the breaking news happening right now in the Senate Oversight Committee. You see Arkansas Senator John Boozman asking the Supreme Court justices questions right now. We will take you there live coming up here in just a few moments. Moments ago in the Senate, there was the official swearing in for Lindsey Graham's sister, Darlene Graham. Welcome into Brookland News Live. There's a lot going on, you guys. I'm Jackson Mitchell. It is Tuesday, July 14th, 2026. Again, Darlene Graham sworn in just a few moments ago. We want to take you to those moments. This was in the Senate, and then we're going to rewind the cameras and take you to the ceremonial swearing in as well. Take a look here. This was, again, just moments ago.
Created by the death of Lindsey O. Graham of South Carolina. The certificate, the chair is advised, is in the form suggested by the Senate. If there is no objection, the reading of the certificate will be waived and it will be printed in full in the record. If the senator designate will now present herself at the desk, the chair will administer the oath of office. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God.
I do.
Again, the swearing in there coming just days after the death of Lindsey Graham, the senator from the state of South Carolina. Now his sister, Darlene Graham, you see her sworn in to serve out the rest of his term. It will go until January. Now, there will be a special election coming up to replace this seat. Of course, Graham won the primary race in South Carolina just weeks ago now and was set to be in the midterms and was highly expected to win this race. So we are again going to continue following what is the future here of his seat on Capitol Hill. But again, in the meantime, Darlene Graham sworn in to replace him. Okay, as interim senator. Now we want to get to the second feed. This is the official swearing in ceremony, or I should say the ceremonial swearing in ceremony. Let's listen in.
Hello, sir. I'm Chuck Grassley. Good to meet you. God bless you. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter. So help you God.
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
God bless you. Oh, you want me in that picture too? You tell me when I'm supposed to get out of the picture.
You're the best looking one here. What are you talking about?
Okay.
Right here. Perfect, just a fan.
And then one more with her, if you don't mind. Thank you. Thank you.
So there you go, the photos. Again, you can just see the emotion on the faces of those. You know, as we were covering this yesterday, I truly cannot imagine what these families at any moment in time could be going through. I mean,
God bless all
this
of you.
is so hard. You know, as I've covered so many unexpected moments and sad moments, I'll tell you that death is one of the hardest ones. Simply because when it's unexpected and even I hate to say this, but you know, the younger a person is when they're dying, when they pass away, it's so hard. And of course, my family has been experienced some of that on our own. So again, it is so challenging to talk about some of this stuff, and especially when it's unexpected, it is hard to cover. But again, Darlene Graham sworn in as the interim senator there for the state of South Carolina. Alrighty, we do have some more breaking news we want to turn to right now. This is just coming into us.
Away from the next street up, which is Pool Street, and we know that's closed. We're seeing several police cruisers up there with officers at both
during a
ends.
vehicle
I
stop.
spoke
That's
to
spokesperson
a neighbor who
says
lives here on
Delgado
Hill Street, just a few
weaponized his
houses down
vehicle
from
in an
this
attempt to
intersection.
run
She
over
told
an
me
officer,
she was
prompting
woken
the
up
officer
around
to
8
fire his
o'clock
weapon
this
himself,
morning
not
by
target
the
of the
sound
search.
of
The officials
gunshots
say
and then
Delgado
a
Araujo
lot
was a
of
Mexican
sirens
national
and this
there
heavy
on
police
the
presence.
side.
And
And
we
our
are hearing
spokesperson says
that
Delgado
ICE
Araujo
officers
ignored
were
commands
involved
during
in
the
this
vehicle
shooting,
stop.
but she told me she had not noticed an increased ICE presence or had not heard about them being in this neighborhood. She did comment that she's always felt safe here, living on Hill Street, and is now questioning her safety this Morgan Street, turning cars away from the next street up, which is Pool Street, and we know that's closed. We're seeing several police cruisers up there with officers at both ends. I spoke to a neighbor who lives here on Hill Street, just a few houses down from this intersection. She told me she was woken up around 8 o'clock this morning by the sound of gunshots and then a lot of sirens and this heavy police presence. And we are hearing that ICE officers were involved in this shooting, but she told me she had not noticed an increased ICE presence or had not heard about them being in this neighborhood. She did comment that she's always felt safe here, living on Hill Street, and is now questioning her safety this Morgan Street, turning cars away from the next street up, which is Pool Street, and we know that's closed. We're seeing
Update that they have decided that they're going to limit most of those traffic stops already. And a day that seemingly is full of breaking news, we now want to take you to our live shot from Capitol Hill, where happening right now in a rare moment, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and Justice Elena Kagan are testifying on Capitol Hill. They already testified in front of the House Oversight Committee. Now they're testifying in front of the Senate Oversight Committee. This has to do with funding on security at the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court requesting that be increased, the funding for their security, saying that they need more security. They've testified throughout the day about the need for it, saying that through recent years, they have experienced heightened moments. Specifically, they talked about, packages being mailed to them was suspicious just to create fear, as they have put it. They've also noted that there have been swatting moments at specifically Justice Coney Barrett's home, where her son opened the door, but luckily Supreme Court police were there. Now, Supreme Court police and Capitol Police, they're very similar. That's something else that was mentioned earlier today at the hearing. So we just want to listen in for just a little bit and bring you guys kind of up to date on what's going on. Now, this is believed to be the last day of testimony for the funding of security at the Supreme Court for funding year 2027. So again, let's continue listening in.
They're required to publicly publish annual disclosures and submit periodic transaction reports for significant security trades, just as members of Congress do. The justices are in compliance. But we have a serious compliance issue across the rest of the federal judiciary. Only a quarter of judges' disclosures were posted on the timeline required in statute, and we're still waiting for more than 200 disclosures from 2024. See it as a requirement, not a suggestion, Justice Kagan. Why do you think so many judges in the federal court system are having difficulty complying? And does the judiciary need additional resources or clarification to help ensure compliance?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the answer to that is. For sure, you're right, Senator Coons, that compliance is of great importance in this area. And I'm glad you said that we are in compliance.
I checked before I asked.
I'm not sure what your bill does, so I'm not going to be able to comment on your bill. But there's no question that every judge should be in compliance with those requirements.
The version that applies to Congress has a financial penalty when your disclosure is not submitted on time. The version applying to the judiciary does not. And I wondered if you thought we should harmonize the legislation.
That I'll take a pass on.
Last point I'll make.
But I just want to say, like Justice Barrett, I think it's great that you and Justice Cornyn are pursuing these, or are taking seriously the threats to the judiciary, the threats to the rule of law, how we can make sure that the judiciary is as fine as it can be.
I'd welcome any follow-up that the judicial conference or that the court wants to make on a number of those points. Last, I'll just reference you had a robust discussion about a ethics code, about the mandatory ethics code, and I appreciate that you're committed to enforcement and that you are recognizing the challenges within the hierarchy of Article 3. But I do think, just speaking for myself, that there is a genuine appearance issue. And I would urge you to work diligently to find a way to deliver a judicially created but effective enforcement mechanism so that some of the transparency and ethics concerns that have been raised about the court can be addressed. I'm the vice chair of the Ethics Committee in the Senate, and I think the fact that there is an enforceable ethics code that applies to every senator and Senate staff, and that we on occasion take publicly known and much more frequently not known actions is an important part of trying our best to preserve confidence in the institutions of our government. Thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you, Senator Coons. We've been joined by the ranking member, Senator Murray. You are recognized.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you both, Justice Barrett, Justice Kagan, for being here today. We appreciate it. Like everyone, I really respect the separation of powers and the importance of an impartial and independent Supreme Court. So it is important for all of us on this committee to fulfill our responsibility to oversee taxpayer dollars. So I just want you to know I really appreciate both of you being here and participating in this hearing. I do have several questions for both of you about the court's budget and operations. But before I go to that, I do want to say I'm very troubled that the current president challenges and has challenged our system of checks and balances in very unprecedented ways, and the court has made some incredibly consequential decisions without any real process or explanation by relying on the shadow docket. And it's also unbelievably important to the functioning of our democracy that we have a well-functioning, independent judiciary that is trusted by the people of this nation. That requires transparency, and it requires the American people to be able to know you are calling balls and strikes and not making decisions based on any financial conflict of interest and what is behind those decisions. So I urge you to keep those issues in mind, and if either of you have any comments on that, particularly on the shadow hearings, I would appreciate it. Justice Kagan?
Sure. You know, this is something that we there are many facets to the shadow docket, and we discuss them and debate them, and sometimes disagree about them. In recent years, we have increasingly received these requests to move fast and to move before a case winds its way through all the levels of review. We have to decide what to do with those requests. We argue about the standards to be used. We argue about how those standards apply in particular cases. Sometimes Justice Barrett and I have agreed. Sometimes Justice Barrett and I have disagreed. I think for myself, what the court is doing better on, but is not completely there on, is even when we feel as though a earlier decision is appropriate, finding ways to incorporate greater process into our decision of those cases. So have oral arguments, have more briefing, make sure to explain ourselves in our decisions more than we did at maybe a year or 18 months ago when we first started being swamped with these applications. I think we can still improve what we're doing. I think you're exactly right that transparency is important, that people need to know, lower court judges need to know, litigants need to know, the public needs to do what it is that we're deciding and why. There are occasions where emergency relief is absolutely appropriate. And it's finding those occasions, but no others, that is the challenge of this.
Okay, I appreciate that response, and don't know if you have anything to add.
Oh, I'll just add one thing. I think one of the challenges, as we're trying to adapt and respond to the number and character of applications that we receive, I think one of the challenges is on our merits docket, we have a very well-established process for handling cases, and each case is treated the exact same way, the same deadlines, the same briefing limits, oral argument, et cetera. And as Justice Kagan alluded to, it's a little bit different with these emergency applications because I don't think any of us takes the position that we should have an opinion written for every one of them or oral argument for every one of them. So it's not quite the same one-size-fits-all process on the emergency docket that we have on the merits docket. And so I think what we're working on now is figuring out which ones do warrant that more process, the oral argument, more briefing, and which ones should be handled in-house, which ones warrant more explanation, which ones really should be just an order. And I think that has been something that we're just working through.
Well, I encourage you strongly to work through that and make it clear. I think, especially at this time, whether it comes to trust or transparency or truthfulness, the public needs to know, and I think you need to recognize that this is a serious question that many of our constituents have. So please continue your work and reach a goal that I think everybody would support you on. So thank you. Now, on your budget request, this committee does take security threats facing the Supreme Court and everyone who signed up to serve the public extremely seriously. That's exactly why Congress provided $58 million in additional security funding in FY26 to address some of these increased threats and vulnerabilities. Unfortunately, however, the court made a request for over half of this funding at the very last minute without any public explanation or justification of the need for that funding after we had already provided $28 million in the continuing resolution last fall. So I just want to ask both of you, will you commit to making public all relevant budget request documents in the future, including for any unanticipated supplemental funding needs?
Absolutely. We want to be transparent, and Justice Kagan had apologized to Ranking Member Reed on the court's behalf if we did anything that was suboptimal in our seeking of those funds. They were in response. We made those requests in response to unexpected needs, like the premature. We didn't expect the marshals to drop residential security as quickly as they did, and they told us that they were going to end it 6 months before we anticipated it. That was one of the big line item reasons for seeking that extra money. So it's my understanding that our staff was transparent with the committee about what the money was being spent on, but absolutely, we want to cooperate and we recognize your important role.
Okay, I think that's really important for you to understand and make sure that we have that documentation. Our constituents require us to be very transparent about where their tax dollars go, and we need that budget information from you. And we want to make sure the court has first-rate security, but we do have very little information about how you are actually building this type of security capacity that you need. So standing up your own police and residential security is not an easy task. How long do you think it will take to be fully staffed and operational? And secondly, what expertise are you relying on to make sure your security personnel have the facilities and the training and the capacity they need?
What we think, we have a goal of 477 police officers. We're a ways away from that right now. If we include people we get through contracting, we can probably do it within a couple of years. But in order to have our own employees get up to that mark, then we're probably talking more like 6 years, into the 2030s. As to what kind of training is being used, I think we're going to have to unless Justice Barrett knows more than I do, I think we're going to have to provide you with further information about that. I'm confident that the kind of training programs that we've put in place are good ones, but I can't give you a whole lot of detail about that.
Okay, that is something that we need to have in order to provide the budget for you, so we would appreciate that back. And finally, I just have a few seconds left. I heard Senator Coons when I come in talk about code of ethics, and I just want to reiterate that. As my colleagues have pointed out, that code is self-enforced, and it is a weaker code of conduct than one all the lower courts have been held to. For example, it essentially allows justices to decide for themselves whether or not they are engaging in a political activity or accepting inappropriate gifts. I know you've been asked at this both in the House, and a number of people here have mentioned it, but I want to add my name and voice to the fact that we need, and our constituents need, to know that you have a code of ethics, that you are held to high standards, because that, again, is about transparency, and it is about returning confidence to the court decisions that are being made. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Murray. Senator Husted, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair Fisher.
Okay, just want to quickly interrupt. We're going to listen back in here, so give me just a second. And just want to note here, we're not going to listen into this for the remainder of the broadcast. So we do have some other news we're planning to get to. So at about 3:28, 3:29, we're going to pivot to the war in Iran. So planning here behind the scenes, just want to let you know into it. We're going to take a quick commercial break at about 2:27 to maybe into 2:28, depending on what's going on at the hearing. And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the war in Iran, and we're going to play President Trump's meeting with the Iraq Prime Minister, the Iraqi Prime Minister speaking from the White House. We're going to air that from this morning to you all coming up here in just a few moments. But again, several live events. We also have a lot to talk about coming up at the end of the hour about what's going on tomorrow and tomorrow's programming. So stick with us for that, because we are going to have a special report coming up tomorrow morning as well. We're going to talk more about that later in the show. Let's listen back in now to, again, a rare moment on Capitol Hill in front of the Senate Oversight Committee. Justice Amy Coney Barrett and Elena Kagan testifying on Capitol Hill.
Attributable to some of the increased security threats. So I was wondering as well, have you seen any of these threats from the information you have as organized threats, either domestically or internationally, that would lead to some of these increased security threats? And Justice Kagan, I'll start with you. Justice Coney Barrett, please follow up if you have any thoughts.
Our sense of the threats is that it's more lone actors, but perhaps.
I think that's one that our staff, if you would like more information in a SCIF or a private meeting, because I think they do know some things about some of the sources of the threats, but probably not something we should say in a public setting.
Okay. I appreciate that, and we will follow up and try
you.
to get more information on that, because I think it could help further make the case for why this is an important issue. In the cases of these security cases and the threats and things like that, do you believe that they're intentionally designed to intimidate you, to alter or change the opinions of the court?
It's hard to see how some of them are not designed to do precisely that. I think they're designed to intimidate or designed maybe to punish after decisions, that the person sending the threat didn't like, as a warning not to do it in the future. It's hard to interpret, particularly those anonymous deliveries that are sent in the name of Judge Salas's murdered son, as anything other than an attempt to intimidate and influence decisions.
The issue on the Dobbs opinion that was leaked. Are we any closer to knowing how that happened? And are you satisfied with the efforts to find out how that leak occurred?
Well, we did a serious internal investigation and could not come to a conclusion about that issue. And it's not that we've closed the books on it. If we get any further information, we will pursue it till the end. And I know that the marshal of the court who was in charge of that investigation feels that that is her responsibility. As to whether it will happen, I don't know.
Okay. We know this is one of the responsibilities I think we all have as public officials, is to watch our rhetoric and how we describe things, and it certainly hasn't gotten better. There's no doubt about that, and the words that people choose can be very inflammatory. But also the words that are sometimes chosen in judicial opinions have seemingly, to me, grown rather inflammatory on occasion, and not necessarily with the Supreme Court, but at all levels of the courts. Are you concerned about that? Is there any discussion about the words that are used in coming up with legal opinions that may indeed contribute to the problem?
I think that, all justices and judges write their own opinions. I would say, speaking for, myself and my sense of how judges think about this generally, is that our goal is to disagree about ideas without crossing the line into the personal. And in my own experience and the experience of the judges with whom I've served, I think that is a line that judges try not to cross, because one thing I think that the courts, not just the Supreme Court, but courts generally can model for the public, is the way to have disagreements that can be very serious about weighty issues and that can be sharp, but that avoid descending into that kind of unhelpful rhetoric that gets very personal.
That is exactly the
Alrighty there, the justice is answering that question of trying, saying they try to, answer legal questions without becoming personal. We're going to take a quick break here, right here live on Brookland News Live. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the war in Iran. We're going to bring you an update on it. Earlier today from the White House this morning, President Trump meeting with the Iraq Prime Minister. We're going to air that live for you. But first, what President Trump said about a 20% fee he was planning to charge ships transiting through the Strait of Hormuz. More on that when we come back. Welcome back here into Brookland News Live. I'm Jackson Mitchell, still with you here on this Tuesday, July 14, 2026. And we are continuing to track all of the big headlines on this very, very busy Tuesday. We are covering a lot of breaking news, still more breaking news to bring you from the White House. Earlier today, the president announcing that he would be charging a 20% fee on vessels attempting to travel through the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, this came after just over the weekend, the Iran Revolutionary Guard announced that the Strait of Hormuz would be closed once again. Then the U.S. said it would be reenacting its naval blockade that it had on the Strait of Hormuz. Well, now the White House says, well, after that announcement of the 20% fee, they're not going to do that, and that there was an agreement between countries. The president earlier today meeting with the Iraq prime minister. They both spoke from the White House, the president taking questions and speaking for nearly 30 minutes. We want to bring it to you in its entirety, live from the White House. Before we do that, though, we do also have a True Social from the president from today, where he says, quote, oil is flowing like never before thanks to the awesome power of the United States military. A special salute to Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Dan Kane, and Commander of the United States Central Command Admiral Brad Cooper. Because of them and all members of the most powerful military anywhere in the world, by far, the Strait of Hormuz is open to all ship traffic except for Iran, and that is because of their lying, violent, malicious leadership, which is taking them down the path of total destruction. We will therefore have a full blockade, but only on ships coming to and from Iranian ports or carrying anything having to do with Iranian cargo. Based on highly productive conversations with Middle East leadership, I've decided to replace the 20% United States reimbursement fee with trade and investment deals that the various Gulf states will be making in the United States. Those investments will be massive, but at the same time extraordinarily good for them and for the future. As everyone is aware, we have the largest dollar investment into the United States of any country in history. But these new investments will take that number even larger, and we will see factories, plants, and equipment pour into the United States at historic levels, which will create additional millions of high-paying American jobs. America is winning like never before. The days of Iran killing hundreds of thousands of people, including 52,000 protesters, are over. And most importantly, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump, again, the president, earlier today making that announcement on True Social. We now want to play for you from the Oval Office when the president and Iraq's prime minister met this morning. Take a listen.
Well, and we have a fantastic champion, a new champion, and he won the election very soundly, very conclusively, and he wasn't favored. But by the time they got to know him, he ended up winning, and he's going to be there for a long time. So I just want to say it's a great honor to have the Prime Minister of Iraq with us. He's been a great fighter, and he's been a great fan of America. We'll be discussing that a little bit with you, but they have tremendous oil reserves. They have tremendous potential wealth, and they have tremendous wealth, not only potential. But he's done in a short period of time, he's changed that country so much, especially toward their thinking about the United States. And we have partnerships. Chris was just saying we have tremendous oil partnerships all of a sudden being formed over the last short period of time, and I guess you're going to be announcing them this week or next week, but massive, among the largest. So they have done a fantastic job over the last very short period of time, but they have a great leader, the new prime minister. He's a great leader. I think he's going to be there for a long period of time, and it's great to have you at the White House. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And he's a young man. He's young and he's handsome, which I don't like. I'm not happy about it.
شكرا جزيلا. لقد عقدنا اجتماعا جيدا وقد دعوته إلى وجبة الغداء، وهذا لم يكن ضمن البرنامج والجدول الذي اتفقنا عليه، لكن هنالك كيمياء عظيمة بيننا وبينهم. رئيس الوزراء يقوم بعمل رائع. أنا لم يتوقع أحد أنه سيفوز في هذه الانتخابات، لكن المرشح المضاد له كان شخص لم يعجبني ولم تكن لديه آراء جيدة تجاه أمريكا، لكن كان من المهم جدا لي أن تفوزوا أنتم في هذه الانتخابات، وأنتم تقومون بعمل رائع جدا. والآن لدينا فائز جديد لم تكن حظوظه كبيرة لكنه مع ذلك نجح في هذه الانتخابات. هو شرف عظيم بالنسبة لي أن أستضيف دولة رئيس الوزراء هنا في البيت الأبيض. هو محارب عظيم، وهو أيضا من المعجبين بأمريكا والولايات المتحدة. العراق طبعا دولة غنية لديها كثير من الاحتياطات النفطية، وهي دولة مليئة بالثروات، وفي وقت قصير تمكنتم من القيام بالكثير وتغيير، على الأقل تغيير شعور العراقيين تجاه أمريكا. وكما قال كريس وزير النفط وأشار إلى ذلك أن هنالك صفقات تجارية كبيرة في مجال النفط سوف يتم الإعلان عنها هذا الأسبوع. أنتم تقومون بعمل رائع وقمتم بعمل رائع خلال وقت قصير. رئيس الوزراء طبعا هو أيضا قائد عظيم، وأعتقد أنكم ستخدمون في هذا المنصب لمدة طويلة. طبعا أنتم في مقتبل العمر أنتم شاب أيضا ووسيم، وهذا طبعا لا يعجبني، لكن مع ذلك يشرفني أن أستضيفكم هنا.
Thank you. أشكر حفاوة الاستقبال إلى فخامة الرئيس دونالد ترامب.
Thank you for the warm welcome by His Excellency President Trump.
وهذه هي زيارتي الأولى
This is my first visit
إلى الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية.
United States of America.
فهذه الزيارة لم تكن زيارة عابرة.
This visit was not just like any visit.
وإنما زيارة إعلان الشراكة اقتصادية.
Rather, it's an announcement of economic partnership.
تحدثت مع فخامة الرئيس.
Where I talked to His Excellency.
30/9 سوف تخرج القوات الأمريكية.
By the 30th of September, the U.S. forces will be out of Iraq.
وسوف تدخل الشركات الأمريكية.
While the U.S. companies will be inside Iraq.
ودائما تخلق العلاقة المجتمعية هي الشراكة الاقتصادية وليس العسكرية.
The social relations is about like economy, it's not like about like military relations.
أنقل تحياتي.
I would convey my greetings
من أقدم حضارة في العالم.
The oldest civilization in the world.
إلى أكبر قلب اقتصادي في العالم وتكنولوجي.
Economic and technology heart in the world.
وأكرر شكري إلى فخامة الرئيس على حفاوة الاستقبال.
My thanks to His Excellency the President for the warm welcome.
Good. Well, thank you very much.
Mr. President.
Mr.
President.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for the Prime Minister.
Go ahead.
Please. To you, sir. If you allow me, I'm going to answer in Arabic. سمو سعادة رئيس الوزراء، هناك طلب أمريكي لحصر سلاح الميليشيات بيد الدولة وكبح جماح إيران وعدم مهاجمة دول الجوار. هل هذه أهداف يمكن أن تتحقق قبل سبتمبر؟ And Mr. President, if I may.
Who are you with?
I'm with Al Arabiya. I cover the Middle East. I'm a White House correspondent. I'm the foreign policy.
Okay.
Sir, is the military attack on Iran, is this a strategy to bring them back to the table? Or is it to degrade them so the regime will eventually fall?
Well, we don't think we need the military there anymore. It's a very a big operation. And what we do have is the oil companies are all going in now, and they're doing partnerships with Iraq, and they're getting along very well. The relationship is a whole big relationship where we don't need the military there. We're there to help them. We're there to protect them if need be, but we don't think that's going to be necessary. And their primary, I consider an opponent, they might have considered a friend, but I consider that an opponent was Iran, was a big burden on Iraq because they were the bully of the Middle East, as you know. And we were just talking about that, but they're not going to have that problem anymore because Iran has been very much destabilized, and really their military power is just a tiny fraction of what it was just 4 months ago. So they're not going to have that problem. I think that it's really, in a sense, it's given them freedom to do what they have to do. And I think that's one of the reasons that our oil companies are going in there at levels that have never been seen before. So. You want to answer?
شكرا جزيلا على السؤال.
Thank you for your question.
ابتداء في منهاج الحكومي
according to the program of the government,
هو حصر السلاح بيد الدولة.
is to restrict the possession of weapons to the state.
وهذه نقطة أساسية.
And this is a basic point.
ولدي قرار بها غير قابل للخيار.
And this is like a decision, it's not an option.
تم استلام
We received
أسلحة كثيرة من قبل بعض الفصائل.
weapons by different factions.
واللي يسلم سلاحه
And whoever surrender his weapon
ويتحول إلى جهة سياسية ومدنية.
turned into like a political or civilian.
من ناحيتنا سيتم التعاون معه.
We will cooperate with them.
بعد 30/9
after the 30th of September
لا حاجة لوجود أي فصائل.
there's no any need for the presence of any faction.
لكون الفصائل
because factions
هي حاجة وليس مهنة.
is a need, it's not a profession.
وماكو مبرر لبقائهم بعد 30/9.
no any justification for their existence after the 30th of September.
إن شاء الله نهاية هذا العام أو بداية العام القادم.
by the end of this year or by the beginning of the next year.
سوف نعلن أكبر مؤتمر السيادة الوطني.
The sovereignty conference is the biggest conference in the region.
قرار العراق بيد العراقيين.
The Iraqi decision is by the hand of the Iraqis only.
وقواتنا الأمنية قادرة على حماية أراضيها.
And our security forces are capable of protecting their borders.
بعد 30/9
after the 30th of September
لا نسمح لأي جهة تحمل سلاح خارج نطاق الدولة.
never accept for any entity to carry weapons outside the control of a state.
President Trump.
Thank you, President Trump. I have two questions. I was wondering if you could explain your changing thinking on the Strait of Hormuz, applying a 20% fee. How did you get to the decision you just announced?
Yeah, so when I put that out yesterday, because we've been doing that for many, many years, it was never fair to me that we would be guarding the strait when we basically don't take anything, we don't need the oil at all. And it wasn't important for us, but it was important for allies. It was important for people that we get along with very well, including the major Gulf state countries. So I put it out yesterday. I thought it was good. I was called by different people, different countries, kings and emirs and all of the people that we all know and we all love, and they've been very strong partners. And they said, we'd love to do it a different way. We'd love to invest in the United States with billions and billions of dollars and continue our record setting, because there's never been a time like this with the United States, with the factories, with the plants, with everything else. And we would like to invest tremendously in the United States as opposed to charging a fee. And I like that actually, because I don't think anybody should be able to charge a fee for the strait or for any other strait relationship in terms of other sections of the world. I don't think anybody should be really in that position. But we were doing it as a reimbursement. The Gulf states are going to invest a tremendous amount of money into the United States, and that was very satisfactory to me. I think it's actually much better.
If I could also ask, are you aware of why the FBI is looking into Senator Graham's death? Have you gotten any updates on why they were at his home?
Well, I don't know why, because I think, he had a problem. His father had a very similar problem, as you know. It's very unique. At first I heard it was clogged arteries, because he did have clogged arteries. He had a problem with that. He was, I wish he took better care of himself. I say, you can solve that problem, but what happened is actually something that's very hard to detect. It was not related to any blockage. It was a totally different thing. And supposedly, and I've watched all the medical reports, I've had the doctors from the White House come in and explain what happened. And this is something that is almost undetectable. And if it happens, there's not much you can do about it. It sounds unfortunate, but there's not much you can do about it. If you look at his father died of the same thing at about the same age. So there was not much. They say it's almost undetectable. You can detect it by if you have a very bad back. That's a sign. It's a bad sign. So if anybody has a bad back, it's a pretty rough thing to think about. But the fact that's one of the primary signs. And he would tell me he had a bad back. But little did anyone realize it was for that. So, and when that bursts, which it did, it burst. There's not much. So I don't see a lot of evil there. I know there's all sorts of conspiracy theories going along, and I don't think the FBI. I think the FBI is wasting their time if they're doing that.
Yeah. On the prior question, the Hormuz Strait whole idea for you, that's dead now. That's completely gone.
No, I just told you. You have Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait, primarily, and then others. I spoke to all of them, and they would love to invest more money in the United States at record amounts, and that would be very acceptable. And this way, there's no fee. I don't like the concept of a fee, but at the same time, it's not fair that we're protecting this strait for the entire world, for China and everyone. I don't mind protecting it for China. I don't mind protecting it for anybody, but it's unfair that we're not in somehow compensated. And we've been doing this for many years. It's bothered me 25 years ago. It bothered me. During my first term, I was doing things like you have to invest in the United States. But by doing it that way, there's no fee. They're investing and they're getting a return on their money, and it's good. But they're going to be making massive investments into the United States, and I like that much better.
President Trump. Can I ask you a bit about the meeting you had today, whether you discussed OPEC? There's been some reporting that Iraq is pushing for changes to OPEC, a larger share, and even that they might consider leaving it. Although Prime Minister
gentleman right here, because here he is. Would you like to know about it?
Are you considering, Mr. Prime Minister, leaving OPEC, or are you pushing for changes within it?
Alrighty, we're going to interrupt really quickly because just moments ago we have some more breaking news about the war in Iran. A post from CENTCOM announcing that they have launched additional strikes on Iran. In that post, they say, quote, at 3 p.m. today, meaning 2 p.m. Central, so the time that we started this show, quote, U.S. Central Command forces began launching an additional round of strikes against Iran, continuing degrading Iranian capabilities used to attack commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. The strikes are taking place as American forces prepare to resume the naval blockade against Iranian ports and coastal areas. That blockade goes into effect at 3 p.m. today. So again, CENTCOM, they're announcing additional strikes on Iran. This is breaking news coming into us literally seconds ago, where again, CENTCOM has just announced these additional strikes. So we are following it all and are monitoring it. So again, this is the piece, the lovely part about being alive is that news breaks while we were on the air, and we are able to get that to you and bring that to you in a matter of moments. So again, thank you for watching every weekday at 2 p.m. And again, we're able to do this live for you and bring you the news the moment it breaks. So again, CENTCOM moments ago announcing that they have launched additional strikes on Iran. We want to take you back into the event where President Trump and the Iraq Prime Minister were taking questions at the White House.
And I do know a lot about the history of Iraq, and I've watched what was happening in Iraq with the elections. And I put a very strong endorsement out because I was very unhappy with the man that was supposed to win the election. And this great gentleman, I think he's going to end up being a great leader. He won. So I'm very happy about that. As far as OPEC, that's his decision, and you might ask him that question.
لا أوبك إحنا أحد البلدان المؤسسة لها.
We are one of the countries that established OPEC.
لكن نريد حقنا وحصة منصفة للعراق.
We need like a fair share for Iraq.
العراق حارب داعش.
Iraq fought ISIS.
والإرهاب بأجمعه.
And terrorism at all.
وبدعم الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية.
Support of the United States of America.
وهذه الحرب مع داعش.
This fight with ISIS.
كلفتنا نفقات كبيرة.
It cost us like huge amounts of money.
ودمرت البنى التحتية العراقية.
Destroyed the Iraqi infrastructure.
مقدار الضرر اللي أصاب العراق.
The damage that really was against Iraq.
أكثر من 400 مليار دولار.
Is more than $400 billion.
لليوم بعض العراقيين مدن مدمرة.
Until today, like some Iraqi cities are totally destroyed.
ويسكنون في مخيمات.
They're like live in camps.
والآن لدي خطة أعيدهم إلى دورهم.
I have a plan to get them back to their homes.
نريد حصة منصفة للعراق.
We need a fair share.
لا أكثر من ذلك.
We need a fair share.
Because if you remember, even though I was a civilian and had no thought of running for president, I get a disproportionate amount of publicity, as you probably heard. And I used to say, don't go into Iraq. Don't attack Iraq. Frankly, they attacked the wrong country. And they did a lot of damage. Yes.
Thank you. Given how the Iranians have been behaving, do you have any regrets about lifting the naval blockade or giving the sanctions waivers?
No. I gave them a chance. I wanted to give them a chance at making a deal. You know, we had a deal 2 days ago. It was done. And then all of a sudden, they couldn't do it. They didn't like something about the deal. They couldn't do it. And they shot first, and that was a big mistake that they shot first because we have been knocking the hell out of them. They're very difficult people. 47 years we put up with it. The SS Cole, you go back all the way, thousands of people, thousands of Americans were killed, a lot of soldiers were killed. A lot of soldiers are walking around or not walking around. I mean, they've been so badly injured. The arms, the legs, the face, with the Soleimani, with the bomb. They call it the roadside bomb. Most people call it the roadside bomb. It's a disaster. And I killed him in my first administration. Had I not, it might be a different story today. He was a mad genius. He was probably a madman, but he was a general, and he had total control over the country. And I actually think the leaders of Iran were afraid of Soleimani. But I killed him. And by the way, with him went a very bad person also. They happened to be meeting each other at the airport. And a very bad person from Iraq happened to be a leader of Iraq, happened to be killed in that same incident. So I don't know if I did you a favor or not. I've never asked you that question. You probably would know better than me. But no, I think that what we've done to Iran is we've taken away almost all of their military capability.
Question for Prime Minister.
Explain. He has to hear that. Go ahead.
هو بيسأل عن قاسم سليماني وانه كيف تم قتله على يده في الولايه الاولى له في عندما كان رئيسا للولايات المتحده. فالفكره هو طبعا كان شخص ذكي جدا وعبقري لكنه كان شرير بنهايه المطاف. في حادث استهداف وقتل عراقي كان في صحبته، كانوا يلتقوا في مطار في العراق في بغداد. فهو بيسأل هل هو كان عملكم خدمة أم لا؟ ما هي النظرة بالنسبة لمقتل سليماني؟
أنا في ذاك الوقت لا أمارس السياسة.
At that time I was not in politics.
وليد كل جيتي نتحدث عن المستقبل ايش راح نسوي.
In my visit, I'd like to talk about the future.
شبعانين من ماضينا القديم.
Because now we are fed up with the past.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Kurdi, sir. Mr. President, thank you for your time. Last year in May, the Prime Minister of Kurdistan region, Masroor Barzani, signed about $110 billion in energy deals with U.S. companies here in Washington, D.C.
Right.
Mr. President, if Baghdad and Erbil work together better, that investment could grow. What is your message and advice to the leaders in Baghdad and Erbil to work together? Why I'm asking this question? Because you are our miracle makers, Mr. President.
I love this question. It's my favorite question so far, by far. Thank you very much for the question. Look, Baghdad, I think, and I and this country, we're going to make some tremendous music together. We haven't been dealing very much over the last 4 or 5 years with the previous administration. Iraq has tremendous potential because of their oil and because of other things, but because of their oil. And we're going to be doing a lot of deals. We're going to create a lot of jobs for both countries, and we're going to be taking out a lot of oil. A lot of oil is coming out, and the American companies are doing it. Mostly American companies now. They don't want to do business with others. They want to do business with America, and that's good. And that's one of the reasons that I felt so strongly that this was going to be a great prime minister, and I fought for that.
How would you describe your relationship with Kurdistan regional government at this time? Because Prime Minister yesterday had a statement and fully support you.
كيف ترون علاقتكم مع كردستان اليوم لأنه السيد كرئيس وزراء؟
أنا أنظر للعراق جسد.
I look at Iraq as a body.
وكل رقعة جغرافية في العراق هي عضو من جسدي.
Each part of Iraq is part of my own body.
فما راح أميز عضو عن آخر.
So I would never distinguish between any organ.
ولا يمكن أن أقطع جزء من جسدي بيدي.
And I cannot cut off any part of any organ from my own body.
كردستان جزء مهم من العراق.
Kurdistan is such an important part of Iraq.
لا يختلفون عن البصرة وعن المحافظات الأخرى.
No different than Basra and other provinces.
But because such nice things were said about him, that means he likes the man that said those nice things.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I have a question for you, and I have a question for Prime Minister. The first question, Mr. Prime Minister, why did you choose the United States as your first trip abroad? And what steps, concrete steps, do you take when you go back to Iraq to make sure that the agreements you are reaching in Washington, D.C. implemented?
أنا ورثت بلد ثقيل.
I inherited such a heavy burden country.
وأنا كماجستير مالية.
I have a master degree in finance.
حللت الوضع الاقتصادي للبلد.
I analyzed the economic situation of the country.
هذا الثقل يراد معي شريك استراتيجي يحمله معي.
With this burden, I need such a strategic partner to really lift this burden.
وأهم شريك استراتيجي في العالم.
The most important strategic partnership in the
هو الولايات
world
المتحدة الأمريكية.
is the United States of America.
فلم تكن زيارتي عابرة أو من فراغ.
It wasn't just like any visit or I came out of nowhere.
ولم تكن عاطفية وإنما عقلية.
It's not emotional, it's about mind.
Inflation slowed to 3.5%.
Yeah, thank you.
Will this trend hold now that strikes on Iran?
I think so. I think it's going to, inflation's down. We inherited the worst inflation in the history of our country. They say 48 years. It was the worst in the history of our country from Biden, Sleepy Joe. He might have been sleepy, but boy, he could create inflation like nobody. And I inherited that, and I got blamed for it, and it's not my fault. We are putting it to sleep. And we've done a great job, Scott and Howard and Marco and even Pete, because he's watching his dollars, right? But they've done a fantastic job. We've all done a fantastic job. So we had the worst inflation in history and the history of our country. I mean, we had months where it was 9 and 10%. And now we have a report just came out. It was just released. Thank you for bringing it up. But the report was incredible. Inflation is way down. That means prices are coming way down. And we're doing a great job. Remember that for the midterms. I say to that camera, remember that because nobody else could do it. Prices are way down. Prices are coming way down, and we're going to bring them much lower yet.
President Trump, people around the world and around the nation are anticipating your big announcement on Thursday night regarding election machines and integrity. Can you give us sort of a sneak peek about what to expect and tell the
Well,
audience?
I'd rather
in
save
America?
it. It will concern that subject, and we'll have a couple of other things to
Why
say
should people
also.
watch, though?
But I'd rather save it, but it's really big news. It's really, really big news. And our country has to shape up. But that's what we're going to be talking about Thursday is it doesn't get bigger because without free and fair elections, you don't have a country. We'll be discussing other things too, but it's going to be a very big announcement. Yeah.
Mr. President, your administration pushed hard to shape Iraq's leadership and tied U.S. support to disarming Iran-backed factions. With the September 15th deadline weeks away, what happening in Baghdad misses it? And does the U.S. troops withdrawal from Kurdistan region still proceed on schedule?
I think everything's on schedule. We have a great, here we are. I mean, we're right now, I even called for a lunch that wasn't scheduled, okay? So in that way, but no, we usually, I don't think I've ever done that where we didn't have lunch. I said, let's have lunch. You know why? Because I like them.
At least in lunch.
I like them. So I think that's all going to work out very well. Yeah.
Sir, do you want this Russia sanctions bill signed within the next week or two, and will you sign it?
Well, I know that Lindsay wanted it very badly. I think they may be adding Iran to it. They're going to add Iran, which is a very big thing. If they did that, they may add Hezbollah too. Just put them if you do business with Hezbollah. So we're looking at that, but they're seriously thinking, and this is in honor of Lindsay. This was his thing. He wanted this more than any other thing. You know how he felt. And there's a good chance that it gets done, but they'd like to add Iran, and they'd like to add Hezbollah to it. That's what I'm hearing. So.
And if that means secondary sanctions on China, India, Europe,
well, we'll have to look. That hasn't been discussed.
Mr. President,
Mr. President, my question for you, the Prime Minister, Ali Zaidi, has launched a campaign to bring weapons held by militia under the control of the state. how does your administration support him to accomplish this vision? My second question, how do you envision the future relations between Kurdistan region and Iraq?
I think everything is going to work out. I think the Middle East, believe it or not, is coming together. We're getting rid of the bully of the Middle East. Iran was the bully of the Middle East. They bullied Iraq. They bullied every country. There was fear all over the Middle East.
Alrighty, the president taking questions live there from the White House. We're doing a pivot right now to your hometown, your weather, excuse me, here as we are continuing to track the latest developments right now in Brooklyn. A look right now outside. There you go. It's a beautiful day. It's a little bit warm, but it's not something that we haven't seen these last few days. The chance of scattered showers is continuing. I think every day that we've done the weather in recent days has literally been me just saying, okay, scattered showers again, you guys, scattered showers again and again and again and again. But this time we do have a day that we are expecting a little later in the week that could be sunny. Tonight, as we go into tonight, scattered showers remain. The chance of them, we don't quite know, is it going to hit Brooklyn? Is it going to hit Jonesboro? Is it going to hit Northeast Arkansas? That is the part that we don't quite have the full answer to, but we do know there is a chance of some showers. Tonight, as we go into tonight, low of 73. Then by Wednesday, high of 87, low of 73. The chance of scattered showers is going to pour over into Wednesday, but by Sunday, it finally could go away. High of 91 and a low of 75. Mostly sunny skies. Could see a few clouds here and there in the sky, but mostly sunny. The sun's going to be out and it is going to be warm on Thursday as we continue tracking your forecast for the remainder of the week. Alrighty, we do want to wrap up our coverage though on this busy, extremely busy Tuesday. We have a lot to talk about. I do want to note that before we leave you here, we're going to be with you tomorrow at 8 a.m. bright and early, 8 a.m. We're going to be with you here. It might not be early for all of you, but it's early for me. I'm not usually even up by 8 a.m. Our show's selling at 2, so I don't have to be up that early to be ready for it. But join us coming up 8 a.m. tomorrow for the confirmation hearing in front of the Senate for Todd Blanche. Of course, President Trump, after he fired Pam Bondi, nominated Todd Blanche, who was the assistant attorney general, former personal attorney for President Trump. Specifically, you might remember the hush money case with Stormy Daniels. Well, now he's been nominated for attorney general to take over the big role, and well, we're going to hear his confirmation hearing tomorrow. It's going to be extremely heated. I'll just go ahead and tell you that. It is going to be hot. It is going to be a lot of emotions in the room. So we're going to be live streaming it tomorrow, coming up at 8 a.m. We also have Jay Clayton, who was nominated by the president to serve after the Tulsi Gabbard said she would be leaving her position. Jay Clayton was nominated to take it over. Democrats have pointed to the lack of national intelligence certification, experience that he has. His hearing is also coming up tomorrow in the Senate. That is going to be in front of the Select Intelligence Committee. That starts at 8:30. So 1 at 8 and 1 at 8:30. We're going to be monitoring mainly the Todd Blanche hearing. We're watching the Jay Clayton here. If anything crazy comes out of it, we're going to bring it to you live. So again, join us tomorrow 8 a.m. for a special report on the hearing with Todd Blanche and his confirmation hearing in front of the Senate. In the meantime, you can follow us on all of our social media pages there on the bottom of your screen, and visit brooklandnews.com. Guys, we've been active there. We posted about the death of Senator Lindsey Graham. We've got this story, this controversy about the jail. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. So join us then. So we got a lot going on there. Join us then at 8 a.m. And you can catch us tomorrow at 2 p.m. for another edition of Brooklyn News Live. I want to thank you all for joining us, though, on this Tuesday. In the meantime, stay safe. We'll see you again tomorrow at 8 a.m.